everyone, my name is Jada,
My name is April.
and this is the Men Her podcast where we focus on healing the little girl to restore the woman. And we do that through centering Christ and nurturing our body, mind, and soul. So, welcome everyone to episode 9. And this is going to be a two-parter, but today we really wanted to focus on the art of emotions. And with that, we'll really be diving into how we grew up to really process and understand our emotions, as well as, based on what we grew up understanding about our emotions, how we've healed spiritually, mentally, physically, all the sorts. So, first, I just want to begin by also stating that, emotions is something that God has given us. And it's something that, God has also throughout the Bible expressed his emotions like sorrow, grief, especially when in the Bible, his people were being very disobedient, anger, like those different things. But with those emotions, I feel like God also wants us to use wisdom and to also express our emotions in a healthy manner so that we're not causing rifts in our relationships, and really just using those our emotions as like a source of knowledge. Because I feel like our emotions do tell us things, like they're a source of knowledge for how we're feeling and how we understand the people around us.
And it's used as checkpoints to let us know, okay, this this may be a problem, but you don't have to stay there.
Exactly.
So it's just information.
Right.
It's there to give you information.
Yeah. But the caveat to that is that a lot of us grew up in very like toxic environments where we were socialized to not really truly understand our emotions and also process them in a healthy manner. As far as like, okay, I'm angry, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna go and punch a wall, or that doesn't mean I'm gonna shout at somebody. Really understanding like how we're supposed to process those emotions in a healthy manner. So I want to ask you, growing up, how did you process your emotions? Like, how did you learn from like your environment, whether that's your parents, friends, how to really process those emotions? Like, what were some things you were observing and learning?
Well, I believe my parents were emotionally unavailable,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they didn't know how to process their own emotions.
Right.
So because they didn't know how to process their own emotions, I had to learn on my own how to process my emotions, but I processed them in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I learned, but it wasn't anything good because when I get mad, I would express through hitting a wall or screaming and yelling and not understanding, okay, just because I feel this way, I don't need to act that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's how I learned.
Was that something that you learned from your parents, or was it because they were emotionally unavailable? They never really taught you the way to really express that anger in a healthy manner.
Yeah, because they was emotionally unavailable. They couldn't teach me how, so that's the only way I knew how.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there were any other like things that you learned from them about your emotions? Like, I know you said like they were emotionally unavailable, so you learned to really figure it out for yourselves. Like they weren't really an example of like, okay, when I'm angry, this is the proper way to do it, because when they weren't available to really talk you through your emotions, validate your emotions, and then walk you through a healthy way of doing it. But is it something that you saw your parents do that was like, it gave you a source of information for how to process your emotions, if that makes sense?
No,
No. Okay. I feel like for
and I
me,
didn't have the emotional intelligence to know, to pay attention to know, this is not how you handle your emotions. So
right.
that's why I don't think so.
Yeah, because it's definitely like something that we're socialized, like based on like what we observing or not observing in your case. Um, I feel like for me, it was like the opposite. Like I learned like through watching you, like how you would like process like your anger, or like I didn't really see you process sadness until I was like really like of age, where you really like communicating certain things that really broke your heart, or certain things that made you upset, that you really showed those emotions. But for me, I feel like you definitely showed anger for the most part. And I feel like for me, I didn't like how you showed anger. So I feel like for me, I really suppressed that emotion. And it's still not in a healthy way to where like I never dealt with it. And when I get angry and I suppress it and it gets to a breaking point, that's when I really lash out in like even more like, sorry, even more extreme way. Um, I feel like with crying, I feel like growing up a lot, I feel like you always said like Jada, stop like crying. So I definitely felt like, oh, I shouldn't be crying. Like I need to just take it to the chin. Like don't show those emotions. So I feel like those are some messaging that I took in as far as like, okay, we don't cry. We just like, try to figure things out without showing that, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling like, because I feel like with me, no matter what I'm really feeling, because I'm really trying to suppress those emotions, I always end up crying. Whether I'm feeling like happy, angry, frustrated, like it always ends in me crying.
And if that's something you saw, that's what I was taught, and just didn't know that's what I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not gonna say we couldn't cry, but it didn't move anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I didn't cry, because
Mm-hmm.
it didn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I just learned to suppress my crying, or I did it where nobody saw me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what are some ways, like from what you learned, when was like one point where you realized, okay, the way that I am expressing these emotions is not healthy? Like, what was that clicking point for you?
Because I stayed getting in trouble. I think we talked about this in some other episodes of the podcast, where it constantly got me in trouble, and I was always the person that always got in trouble because nobody saw what the other person did to me in order for me to react the way that I reacted.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always that cause effect thing, but I was always the effect and always causing trouble, like the troublemaker.
Mm-hmm.
So because I was always looked at as the troublemaker because I was the one expressing my emotions, or I'm too emotional, or you making a big deal out of things. That's what I was told.
Mm-hmm.
And so because that was the thing that I was told when I was just trying to be heard, that's the only way I knew how to process, because if I didn't, I knew I would explode, but I knew it had to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And me being angry and yelling and screaming was the only time somebody listened.
Right. So basically, like what your environment was responding to, how you express your emotion, told you like, okay, I guess like the way I'm communicating how I'm feeling is not landing with others. So it's like something has to change. And so like now, when you are feeling like, for example, angry, like what are some things that you've changed in order to express it in a more healthy manner?
Well, when I'm angry, I don't respond.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned not to respond in anger, because sometimes you end up saying things that you later regret.
Mm-hmm.
But also, too, I try to look at it in a different perspective to make sure that I'm not wrong before I just lash out and say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But also, too, I have realized when I do get angry, it's not anger towards what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really towards what the person said. And then I realized, okay, what they said didn't really had nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing for me to get angry about. Once I learned that a lot of stuff that people tell me is them projecting their feelings onto me, I'm no longer getting angry about stuff, because now I realize it's really about them, has nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of questions, like just from that. I guess the first one, I got so many questions. The first one being, do you feel like a lot of times it's maybe not anger that you're really trying to express, but some other emotion, but it's coming off as anger?
Yes, and I have learned through therapy that we may call one emotion something, and it's really not that.
Mm-hmm.
And once I've learned the emotion wheel, to know how to better categorize my emotions and to sit with that emotion till I really know what it is, instead of categorizing it as always anger or always sadness. It could be something else. But because I'm so used to just using those emotions,
Mm-hmm.
I'll wrongly categorize it.
Yeah. And I feel like also a lot of time, I guess back to your point where like you understanding now that your anger is not really at the person per se, but more towards like their thoughts and their thinking. I feel like for me, a lot of times I do have to realize like when I am conveying my emotions, I'm not even using the word I a lot. Like I'm just throwing sentences together to really make it seem like, oh, it's the person, is the person, is the person. But for me, I feel like one thing that's been helpful in conveying my emotions is tying that to like what was the thought that made me
Mm-hmm.
like feel that emotion. Like even just saying like you were late, and because you were late to this, I felt very like disrespected and I felt like you weren't acknowledging my time. Like, tying that emotion to like a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I feel like also a lot of times I in the past, like I never really was able to pinpoint what emotion I was feeling. Kind of back to your point where like you're expressing it as anger, but is it really something else deep rooted that you haven't really take time to calm down and really process what was it that got me
Because it
here?
could be disappointment. It could be
Right.
many things, but it's everything is not that you're angry.
Right. And I think that's something else that through how I was raised, I feel like it made to me growing up, I was like, okay, every time I'm upset, I'm not really expressing anger. I'm expressing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like just from seeing you, I feel like previously how I just said like I never saw you cry. I don't even think it was that I never saw you cry. I think in the moments I thought you were angry, like I feel like even today I be telling you, like, oh no, you was really like disappointing. Like, no, you felt betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
No, you felt let down. But it always just because you express all those different emotions in the same way,
Mm-hmm.
I just interpret it as, oh, I've never seen my mama cry. Cause I feel like a lot of times we also associate certain actions, certain behaviors with certain emotions. But when you are growing up in an environment where you've never been able to really see all those emotions in play, like for you say your parents were emotionally unavailable, so you never was able to really associate, okay, if my parent is yelling, that's anger, if my parent is crying, that's sadness, because those are like indicators like this is how this person is feeling. But because your parents never gave you that outlet to really express those things, you were expressing all these different emotions but in the same way. And so it's like for you, it's like, okay, it must be anger because that's the only thing I've seen, or that's the only thing that I
No,
know to really convey.
right.
And so I feel like for me, that also passed on to me as far as like I never saw you express the other indicators. So to me, it was like, okay, all I know is anger, but I know I don't want that because I also didn't like how you expressed your anger, even though there was other emotions you were expressing as well. And so for me, I suppressed it, which still wasn't good in the end because that buildup still resulted in anger or
Mm-hmm.
other feelings that I was trying to suppress.
Right.
So, what emotional pattern are you actively trying to unlearn?
Give me some examples, because nothing.
Like, okay, one could be like for me, like road rage. I'm trying to unlearn the first like response to like what just happened is just like anger, like
I
or
get,
like certain things that you do when you're feeling certain ways that are unhealthy.
well, one is I'm trying to unlearn the emotional feeling of being overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I know things are picking up in my life and I'm getting busy, not busier, but getting more productive, I start to feel overwhelmed, and then I just want to just stop doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to learn. I'm learning how to keep pushing myself through that feeling and not calling it overwhelming, and associating it with something else. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always associated with being overwhelmed, I'm trying to learn to associate it with something else. Like, um, I don't even know what I'm trying to associate it with, but that's the the emotion I'm trying to
Are you
overcome.
also, I'm just trying to pick your brain. Are you also trying to unlearn, cuz I guess like with certain emotions it affects our behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So like do you feel like when you're overwhelmed it affects like, oh, I don't want to be bothered right now. I feel like cuz for me that's how I interpret overwhelming is like too much going on. I'm overstimulated. Don't talk to me. Don't bother me. Let me be in my hole. Let me shut down. But that could also be negative in the sense that I'm closing off my relationships. As far as just rather than communicating, hey, like, I know you want to talk right now, but I'm just feeling very overwhelmed right now. Just, can I get a minute? Or maybe can you talk me through how can I get out this feeling?
It's not being overwhelmed with people. Excuse me. It's not being overwhelmed with people. It's being overwhelmed with my thoughts.
No, right. I'm saying like to my question, like what is emotional pattern are you actually trying to unlearn? And I guess now I just thought of an example for like for me that I guess to help you answer the question. Like for me, an emotional pattern I'm trying to unlearn is that when I am overwhelmed, don't close people off. Like, don't shut people out, because I feel like when I'm overwhelmed, it impacts my behaviors, and those behaviors that are impacted is being ugly to other people, when it's really just like communicating my emotion, so I'm able to, you never know, somebody could help me out through that overwhelming
And
feeling.
mine is to talk myself through my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and just do one task at a time, and not be in the future thinking, oh, I got all this stuff to do, and then I just don't do anything.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Okay. So not
feeling overwhelmed.
Right.
Not just stopping everything, but thinking things through, and just think about doing one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Find one task to do and complete that task, and then move to the next. Instead of thinking, oh, I got this to do, and then I'm feeling overwhelmed, and then I just don't do anything.
Right. And that's yeah, and that definitely could be helpful, because it's like when you are thinking about so many different things into the future, that is like, that was me today, like just like, oh, I got this to do next week, and I'm like, Jay, to focus on the day, like, and also like think about what you got done today, just to turn that negative emotion into something positive.
Right.
Is also like a way to like flip it too. So now I'll just move on to like, I guess, reflecting on like the emotions that we were allowed to have, if we were allowed to have those emotions growing up. I know you say your parents weren't emotionally available, but what emotions felt acceptable in your household, if any?
I don't really recall. I don't know if I didn't blacked out my childhood or whatever, but I don't recall anything, because one thing I didn't like was when I did have a problem, my mom always said pray about it. Not that prayer is not a good thing, but as a child, you're looking to express something to your parents to get understanding, and you telling me to go talk to somebody I don't see. And it didn't register.
Do you think like her telling you that caused you to suppress, or like was a factor in you suppressing your emotions?
No, it made me mad.
But you don't think that's still an act of suppression? Like her telling you basically read the Bible, consult with God, is like, because I feel like when I think about suppression, I think of as like, no one is letting me have an outlet, so I gotta find an outlet myself. That's still suppression.
Well,
yeah,
if that's how the way you look at it, but I felt my outlet was getting upset.
Yeah. Okay. Because I feel like and the reason why I say I just like in my terms, but you can have a different.
Yeah, I never suppressed my feelings. It had to come out, or I'm gonna explode. So me, when she tell me that, oh, I'm rambling off at the mouth, I'm just saying anything, because I have to get it out. I can't keep it in. And so I'm steady trying to explain what I'm trying to explain, and all it does is make me angry because you're not listening.
So just not having like that safety to really communicate how you were feeling.
Right.
So I do feel like a lot of like the emotional suppression, and also not being able to really like identify your emotions, or like have the space to do that, is, I feel like safety is important, like in any environment, whether that's within a friendship, within like between parents, like having that feeling like I feel safe here communicating with this person,
like
how I'm feeling.
It's okay for, and that's where we need to get to the point where it's okay for us to listen and let people express how the way they feel, without feeling like we gotta correct them or tell them, oh, that's not how you feeling. You see what I'm saying? Not saying that your feelings are correct, because our feelings are constantly changing every second. But sometimes just letting people just say how the way they feel, or how that you made them feel, or whatever, can change the direction of a person's life. Because once you then acknowledge that's how the way they feel, then you are able to convey to them, oh, I'm sorry, that's not how the way I made you, I wanted to make you feel. This is what I was trying to say. Because then that turns their ears on to listen, because you took the time to hear them out and acknowledge their feelings.
Right. But there's also like times where I just wonder if I was like, if you did model different emotions in the way to like process them, how that would have affected my ability to regulate my emotions.
Right.
Because I feel like there is like a process. I'm not saying like you have to be perfect in teaching your child these things, but I feel like it does help. And being in control of your emotions help you be in control of your life. Because
Yes.
a lot of things we're doing is based on how we're feeling, and not just based in just like, this is what it is, this is what it ain't.
Right. And then you understand that when you're in those emotions, that's not the time to make a decision, because a lot of times we're making decisions out of our emotions and then turn around and regret the decisions we made, because we didn't take the time to actually sit and understand the emotions that we were dealing with, and knowing that your emotions and your feelings change by the second.
Exactly.
So just because you was feeling that in that moment, that don't mean you was feeling that the next second or whatever, and you didn't made a decision based off of something that changed just like that.
Right.
So it's very important that we learn emotional intelligence.
And that's something we're going to cover in part 2, because I feel like that's definitely important. And it's definitely important. Like, it's important to understand like how were you raised to really understand, perceive, and understand others' emotions, but also, you know,
and then knowing how to be emotional intelligence also lets you know how to respond to things. Like, you don't have to respond to everything. That was something I learned becoming emotional intelligence. Like, everything don't need a response.
And I feel like that's the whole part of like really dissecting like how we were raised to process the emotions, because honestly, that's something I've just come to realize, like, everybody really not as emotionally intelligent as they think they are.
Right.
Because I feel like there's a difference between emotional awareness and intelligence. Because intelligence, just think of like intelligence for like anything. Like, if like military intelligence, like it's all some source, like we talked about earlier, source of information, source of knowledge, as to understanding, this is how this person is feeling and this is how I can respond, or this is for me to understand where they're coming from. Not to really be combative or to harm the relationship. It's really to benefit the relationship, because we're all human beings and we're all trying to just understand why people do the things that they do at the end of the day. But the emotions kind of blur that understanding, because we are emotional beings.
Like, for example, when I used to get angry and you used to be like confused, like, what is she so angry about? And you didn't understand what I was feeling, because I always categorized it as angry, until you really started paying attention to me and you said, oh, that's not angry. You're not expressing anger. You're expressing betrayal. That's emotional intelligence, when you could actually sit back, not make it about you, but sit back and really hear what the person is saying, and be able to categorize and say, oh, they saying this, but they really feeling this. That's emotional intelligence.
Right. And I feel like it's helpful. I feel like it's helpful for me and you. It has been helpful as far as like recategorizing that and really expanding what that looks like as well. Like, even just telling you like, oh, mom, you feel betrayal, like, talk me through that. And I feel like once we really pinpoint what that really is, I feel like you feel a weight, like, oh, someone finally is understanding me. Like,
Right.
I'm finally feeling heard, because like you talked about in your childhood, you didn't feel that.
Right.
And so because you didn't feel like it came out as anger, but it's like that's what I'm saying. I feel like that's why for me I was interpreted as suppression, meaning like there's other emotions that were suppressed for you to express. Because if you're expressing all those sadness, betrayal, spite, not saying it's spite, but I'm just saying, like, if you're expressing all other emotions that is not anger, because anger, there's a plethora of other emotions we all express. Disappointment, that is being suppressed. Like, you're not expressing that in the form of sadness, the disappointment. It's all coming out as anger. So that's why I was saying, like, what grandma was saying kind of suppressed your ability to express other emotions, because like if I'm trying to communicate sadness and she's shutting down my sadness, she's not validating my sadness, of course you're gonna feel angry. So everything is gonna be anger, because it's like at this point no one is understanding I'm feeling these things, I'm not being validated, I'm
Right.
not being heard. So you were expressing that anger, but at the end of the day you still suppress the other emotions
I
to be
get it
conveyed
now.
to others. So
Right.
that's what I was trying to get at. But that,
Right.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. um so yeah, that kind of got on my other question, like were there emotions you learned to hide or suppress? I feel like for you it was like those other, like sadness, disappointment, betrayal, guilt. Not saying guilt, I'm just saying like there's so many
Guilt,
other,
shame, yeah.
yeah, you know, and so it came out as anger, but it's like no, like in your adulthood, it's like, why is everyone saying I'm angry? I'm not angry.
Right.
And now I understand why you used to say that, because I'm like, but it's given angry. But when you take the tone out of it and you listen to the words, because I feel like also helping you, like, okay, so what I'm hearing is this, so it sounds like you're feeling this, and if you was like, yeah, you be like, yeah,
Right.
that's what it is. And so that's what I'm saying. If we take like a lot of, I feel like using a lot of I statements and also backing it up with like this behavior triggered this feeling, I feel like that also helps like kind of course correct, like, oh, this is how I'm really understanding how I'm feeling. So this is how I'm trying to convey to others, this is how I'm feeling, to get a better
Right.
understanding, like how can we better this relationship? Because again, you expressing anger to grandma or expressing those other emotions to grandma was just you trying to help her understand you better and understand what you need. Because
Right.
emotions is really conveying like I need this.
Right.
Like if I'm feeling hungry, it's because I need food.
Right.
If I'm feeling disappointed, it's because somebody did something to me and I needed to be corrected.
Right.
If I'm feeling betrayal, it's because I feel like somebody betrayed my trust, or just did something to me that I wouldn't expect a friend or someone that I really trusted to do to me. You know, they breached something.
Right.
So it's like really understanding what was the action behind it to really understand like how you're feeling. I feel like it's also very helpful, because I feel like for me, in my understanding of my emotions, I always just think back, what did that person do? And then really try to pinpoint, it's not, you know, the big three: sad, anger, happiness. It's something deeper to really help repair my relationship with that person, because that's how I'm trying to shifting my idea about emotions again as knowledge, as far as to like how to repair something, how to restore something,
Right.
or how to keep something going that is positive, because emotions can be positive.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. What does emotional safety look like for you now in order to do that? Like, what are the traits, I guess?
Being able to talk it out without being angry, but you know, really being able to express myself, someone really listening to hear and to understand and not to reply, but also to someone that's listening but also could really hear the unspoken. And I know that's what I'm good at.
The little girl that's very hurt.
Yeah. I'm good at hearing what's not being said. But nobody's good at listening to me and hearing what's not being said. You was good at that, because you could stop and you be like, she's saying this, but I think she really feeling this. And when you would bring it out, I would agree. Yeah.
And that's another thing, because I feel like, especially like in the Black community, there's only like certain emotions that I feel like our parents or even like our peers really show. Like we don't really show
all emotions.
Yeah, all the emotions. And I feel like that really limits us and really knowing how to express those emotions in a healthy way.
Correct.
Because I feel like I could speak for me, and you would definitely correct me if I'm wrong. Like we've only really seen like the negative parts, like, you know, the anger, the frustration, those parts that also make it seem like, oh, I'm angry at that person. But a lot of times those emotions are things that we have suppressed from childhood that is just now is just like, it's a trigger.
Right.
It's like, oh, somebody did something that was done in my childhood and I still never addressed that, never told that person, you did this, so this is how they made me feel. And so now that's a trigger. So now like those emotions are just quick to rise up, because that's all we're in that same cycle of like anger. Right. Or if you are feeling those other emotions, you're just still expressing it as anger, because you never were understood, like okay, I'm not feeling anger, I'm feeling actually this. And someone being able to understand that and course correct you and say, oh, you're experiencing sadness. And, when people experience sadness, this is what happens. Not saying you have to follow that process because everybody expresses emotions differently, but just helping you understand, to be able to understand how you're really feeling.
And just like you and I had that conversation, and I realized it wasn't abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
It was being chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us misuse the word abandonment, and it's really you not feeling chosen.
Right. And that's why when you had asked me, I feel like in a previous episode, you was like, when you felt abandoned. And I was like, maybe that's not the word to use because I don't feel that deeply in my heart. But I know there's something there in my childhood that I felt that perpetuates the behaviors that I do in adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still like, it's a lot of soul searching I'm doing to try to figure out like what exactly is it. Because I feel like when you really identify it, you know in your heart, like, yeah, that's what it is. Because everything else starts to make sense.
Right.
And you start to really do that healing work to really unlearn what has affected you.
Because as long as you keep calling this up, and that's why I knew I had to dig deeper, because I kept saying abandonment, but I was like, that's not it. And then I kept saying it, and I'm like, that's not it.
Right.
And I even told my therapist, I was like, it's something else I need to heal. I don't feel healed from. And then when you and I went to the beach and had that conversation, and I said that word, I felt free.
Do you ever like, since we've been having those talks as far as like, nah, you're not really feeling that. It sounds like, because I also try to say like, it sounds like, because I also don't want to tell you how you're feeling, because sometimes it is anger. Like sometimes it's like, no.
Yes. But once we talk it through, anger is the emotion I express because the other emotions didn't come out.
Right. And because people aren't understanding, it is other stuff. Like it's not always anger with me. Like it's really other stuff. So do you feel like now, do you find yourself like really checking in with yourself, like, okay, Jada, not Jada, okay, April, is it really anger I'm feeling? Like, cause I feel like that is the first thing that we always want to do. I mean, God does tell us, I think it's James 1:9, like, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slower to anger. And I feel like a lot of times, because as humans, I feel like our first reaction, everything is anger. So do you feel like now you're kind of like checking in with yourself, like, okay, I know my first emotion I'm probably feeling like I'm feeling is an anger, but do you ever like be like, nah, April, let's really see like what this emotion is?
Yes. I check it a lot because I'm so used to categorizing everything as anger. And I'm like, April, you're not angry.
Right.
Like, really sit in it, really dissect what it is and get to the bottom of it, because it's not anger. Right. You're feeling some other emotion and you need to determine what that emotion is. And then also, why are you feeling that emotion? What made you feel that emotion?
Right. Yeah, I feel like since like me like really trying to unpack the different emotions that I have suppressed and really understanding, okay, what am I feeling? I feel like one of the questions that I tend to ask myself is like, what do I need? Like, what am I lacking? Or like, what happened previously that I didn't like, or that I feel like I could have used more of, or something like that. Like, I'm trying to think of a quick example. This is not quick, but like, okay, let's say it's something work related, and I'm feeling angry because I got to do this, and this, and I wasn't like notified about it. I feel like now I'll be the type of person to be like, okay, Jada, calm down. Like, what happened? And it's not really anger that I'm feeling. I'm feeling
frustration.
Yeah, more like frustration that I wasn't like alerted ahead of time, or like just feeling like there's a lack of
blindsided.
Blind. That's a good one. Blindsided. Like really thinking like what I needed from y'all was like communication about deadlines, checking in with me, seeing like what I had coming up and stuff like that. Not saying this is a real example, y'all. I'm just coming up with an example. Like that's what I needed, and so that's why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling.
Right.
And so that's what I feel like I've been trying to do more of, is just like taking a pause to really backtrack. Okay, what just happened? what was there a lack of? What was there a need? Like, what am I trying to tell myself? Like, this is what I needed from this scenario, this situation, this interaction with that person. Like, what did I need to really address my emotion, but also figure out, okay, how can I get out of this emotion? Especially if it's a negative emotion, how can I get out of this emotion and really.
And how can you address the person that caused that emotion as well? So that's very useful.
Yeah.
To do it that way, because you don't really, it's not that you have to keep that emotion, but you know how to go about handling that emotion.
Exactly. And I feel like if anything, also just being able to expand like your understanding of like, when this happens, this is really what I'm feeling. Just being able to expand your emotional vocabulary as well, to really be able to communicate that.
Correct.
Because I feel like that is going to be helpful when you are trying to talk to someone and help them, understand what you was feeling and what you needed.
And that could keep people off the offense too, or defense. I mean, keep them from being defensive.
Right.
Because you have a better vocabulary of your emotions, and they're not taking everything as, oh, you just saying I'm doing this and I'm not. But that's because we don't understand all the emotions that we are letting out, and we calling it one thing, and it's causing unnecessary confusion between you and the other person.
Right. And I feel like when you do that too, at least for me, I feel like it kind of flips it on its head, as far as, like you said, the person is not trying to defend themselves, because it's more just saying, this is just what I need from this relationship. And because I didn't get that from you, this is the results. Like, I'm just feeling this way.
And you taking it off of that person.
Exactly.
Instead of saying,
you did this.
You're saying, I just feel this way.
Yeah. Like, I don't feel like I got this from you, and because of that, this is how I'm feeling about this right now. But it's just like, it's also showing like, I'm communicating this to you because I want to build our relationship. I want to repair our relationship. And I also just want you to understand like what I need, because I feel like that's also like an emotional boundary kind of playing. Boundaries is coming into play for this as well. So this episode is definitely covering like, attachment styles, boundaries, communication, because you need all those different things in order to really be emotionally intelligent. And I feel like we're gonna really dive into that deeper in the next episode. But for this episode, we really just wanted to hone in as far as, okay, how do we really come to learn how to understand, how to process, and how to communicate how we're feeling with others? And how can we get to the point where we are emotionally intelligent enough to be able to not only perceive like how we're feeling, but also how like others are feeling, in order to really just use that as knowledge and information,
and learn how to better communicate.
Yeah, to use that as knowledge and information to really understand, what is that person lacking? What does that person need in order to not feel the negative emotions? And also help them to understand, like, when I am feeling this emotion, this is how I could get out of that.
Right.
So stay tuned for part 2, and thank you guys for listening. See you soon.
Bye.